Teaching taught me how to convince teenagers that Burns is as influential as any rapper.
How to turn if I go to college to when I go to college.
The secrets of leadership and negotiation.
How to settle a class and stir a school.
That making a breakthrough takes effort.
How to make Class 4C love reading.
And that you never stop learning.
That's what teaching taught me.
Start your journey at teachingscotland.scot.
Hello, how you doing? I'm Craig Parkinson. You are listening to the Two Shot Podcast. Sit yourself down, pop the kettle on. We're going to have a nice old chat. Who's it with this week? I'm going to tell you right now. How the devil are you? Oh, hello. Yes, it's Thursday. I know it was Thursday last week and we weren't here, but we're back this week. And it's got off to a busy old week, to be honest, because I now have the time to back up and get loads of episodes recorded, which is what I've been doing. Sadly, without my partner in crime, producer Griff, because he's been busy doing something else, which is a real shame. But I did sit down in person. I went round to somebody's house. I can't say who it is yet because we're just finalising that episode and getting it all nice and clean and ready for you in a few weeks' time. But this week kicked off in a rather lovely way because I sat down with the wonderful Shaun Evans. Now, I've known Shaun for a few years. Obviously, we haven't seen each other for a long time. And he is quite a private man. So for him to come on this podcast is a big deal for me. And plus, he's a really nice guy. And I love spending some time with him. And we talk about avenues of creativity and all sorts of stuff, photography, storytelling, a little bit about acting, a little bit about training. But generally, you will get a sense of who Shaun is. And he's a lovely, lovely, thoughtful man. Look, you're going to know Shaun. You've seen him recently on the BBC in Vigil. If you haven't caught up, it's on iPlayer. Also in that show is a family friend of the podcast. I can say that, Martin Compston, past guest and lovely, lovely fella, Connor Swindles. And that's produced by our good friends at World Productions. Also, Shaun is at the theatre in London at the National in a play called Manor, which runs until, I believe, New Year's Day. So if you're in London, you want to go to the theatre, he's there. We'll just get down to it. I met up with Shaun, sadly, over the computer. But it's a lovely conversation, and I'm so pleased you're here for it. Let's get down to it. This is the Two Shot Podcast with the wonderful Mr. Shaun Evans. Enjoy. I'll see you at the end.
Flu can be serious, even for healthy children. That's why all 2 to 5-year-olds in Scotland can get the free flu vaccine. It's a painless nose spray which feels like a little tickle. The vaccine can't give your child flu, and it's the best way to protect them and everyone around them. If you haven't already, it's not too late to get your child vaccinated. Visit nhsinform.scot/child flu or call 0800 030 8013 to find out more.
It seems I'm recording, Shaun Evans. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good, mate. Very good. Lovely to see you, pal. I haven't seen you in ages.
I know. I wanted to swing by and come and see you the other week after the press night of the play, but I had to dash off because I had to get back to Brighton, where I was working with your friend of mine, the lovely Russell Lewis.
Oh, were you on Grace?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic, man. How's it been going? You just wrapped?
Yeah, just wrapped for Christmas. It's been great again. Yeah, and I know you find this as well. There's such lovely intensity, but a lot of freedom in telling a story in that 90 minutes, which is what you've been doing for years with Endeavour.
Yeah.
But before we get on to acting, Shaun, which I want to talk about, obviously, and I do want to talk about directing, but I want to talk about photography.
Oh, okay, cool, man. Yeah.
When did your love of photography sort of rear its head?
You know what? It's when I was about 15, I started working in a photography shop when I was still up north. But I'd always been interested in it, really, to be honest with you, black and white specifically. And so I've always taken pictures, and I have a little dark room where I developed them myself. And then what I love about it, it's sort of grown over the years, because what I love about it is, I mean, you know what it's like if you're doing your work as an actor or if you're directing, you need there's so many moving parts, and you need so many permissions in order to do your work. Whereas with this, I can go and take some photographs, go back to the dark room, make prints, and then either give them as gifts or hang them or share them with people, you know. And by the end of the week, you feel like you've done something, you've done some of your work, which doesn't depend upon anyone else, you know. So there's that aspect of it. But I mean, I suppose I've been thinking about it a lot lately, because I've been working with this, collaborating with this German photographer, and I suppose in a way it's all connected to storytelling, you know. But to just wind it back a bit, when I was 25, I was shooting a film in Australia with a friend of mine, a director called Ringan Ledwidge, who introduced me to a photographer called Nan Golden, which is all colour photography of 80s New York. And that blew my mind, really, because she had a very famous thing called The Ballad of Sexual Dependency, which is a slideshow of all of the people that she was associating with. And it was sort of a diary of her life, but she was able to make those sort of snapshots into works of art. There's something about the whole thing which I just find incredibly appealing. For me personally, I think I tend towards black and white, because I think you look more closely at black and white photography than you do at colour photography. But again, it's all storytelling, you know. It's all storytelling.
I mean, it is interesting you said it, because it is all storytelling. It is, because it's a bit like, you know, sometimes what we do wherever we are in a big city, or if we're in a strange city, an alien city, I always like to sit down like outside in a cafe, or if I'm in Soho, and you just watch, and you're constantly sort of picturing, oh, what's going on with that couple? What's going on with that person? We're constantly looking for these stories and telling these stories. And it is the same with photography, because one of the first exhibitions that I went to when we were allowed to go, funnily enough, was in Liverpool, and it was at the Tate.
Oh, which is the Don McCullum.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
amazing, isn't it?
And I do adore his work, but I had to leave towards the end, because it just got a bit too much for me, because his storytelling is so intense, and you know, it is black and white, and it's harrowing, but the stories are all there. You can just see them. But once you're drinking those in, there's only so much you can take, certainly with that photography, you know.
So, I mean, what I thought was interesting about that was, even, I'm a big fan of Don McCullum, because he's seen so many extraordinary things. But even if you look at the post-war stuff of just the landscapes in Somerset, there's such a drama and like violence to them as well, in a way, isn't there? And I think that's so interesting, because as an artist, he's expressing something inside of him, right? Do you know what I mean? Even by taking photographs of the world outside, it's in a way sort of expressing something which is in him, or his own creative individuality and how he sees the world, which I find just endlessly fascinating. Do you know what I mean? In terms of images. And then if you take it back to sort of acting and directing and storytelling, you know, the things that we're attracted to, the stories that we want to keep telling, or that we have a need to keep telling. I just think it's incredibly interesting, you know.
But also, you touched on it again back there, that this was something that you have complete control over, is photography. Yeah. Whereas, as we all know, we're at the behest of somebody else opening the door and going, yes, Shaun, I'd like you to come and do this, or I'd like to act in this, or I'd like to direct this. This is, you can get up, you can take your kit, and you've got a creative
outlet. Is that tremendously important to you? Because you don't.
Yeah, it's incredibly important.
You,
For sure.
you don't strike me as an artist who just sort of sits around and waits for a job to come. You kind of get up and just.
Life is short, man. Life is short, you know. And while we have the energy and the vim to get shit done, you know, I think I want to make sure that I'm making the absolute most of it. You know, I'm just not the kind of person who's going to sit around in coffee shops bitching about not getting jobs. You know, I've never been that way. I think I want to make sure that I'm really contributing, you know, like to my own life, but also to hopefully to the wider world as well, you know, and not selling myself short. So that you've hit the nail on the head, really, because whilst it began as an interest, I realised photography. I'm talking about it. I realised that actually it could become an extension of your work and something about which you take control. It's interesting because I'm mentoring. I got asked by the drama school that I went to mentor this one of the young actors who's in his third year, and I really thought about it. You know, I mean, what can you say? Some of them will work, some of them won't. But I thought the best thing that I could say would be, at the heart of it, you're all artists, else you wouldn't be here. Now, that's the sort of trunk of it. But the branches are, some of you will write, some of you will direct, some of you will act. Those are the branches. But ultimately, if you see yourself as an artist, that's the gift that you have to give the world. Now, the world may not want you to act. You may not get agents. You may not get jobs. You may not get the jobs that you want. So you have to find a way for you to feel satisfied, creatively satisfied in the world that doesn't depend upon someone giving you the permission to do your work. So I sort of was thinking about that myself, you know, when I was in the first couple of years, getting really interesting jobs, but not getting the jobs perhaps that you wanted, and thinking, this is going to make me really unhappy if this go, you know, if I don't find a way of being able to negotiate this. That's just me.
No, but I think it's really, really sound advice because you know, everybody who trains or has joy in this business, it might not be the right time. It is all about timing as well, and obviously we know it's about luck. But there needs to be, you know, one needs to have a creative output at some point. Yeah, and it can be incredibly frustrating, especially for the young graduates who have graduated over the past 2 years. I mean, it's incredibly sad.
Yeah,
and I've spoken to certain students sort of up here in Manchester, and a lad that I've been mentoring from Central, and he's just found it incredibly hard sometimes to pick himself up. Yeah. But you know, that's kind of what we have to do. Did you have times like that?
Before you go on, what about you? How do you negotiate that yourself? Do you know that idea of being able of giving your power to someone else, or because it can be anything. It can be cooking, it can be woodwork, it can be, do you know what I mean, making quilts, whatever, making a family, actually, whatever, you know. But you personally, fella, how do you sort of negotiate that?
Well, I started a podcast 5 years ago, Shaun. So I thought you know what a huge part of what we do as actors, and one of the most important things is to listen, right? Mm-hmm. And I started to hear so many interviews, certainly with my peers, who were given like between 7 and sort of 12 minutes on a chat show or a radio show, and you've done these things yourself. It's like you're just there to plug the job, and you're hearing the same interviews again and again. And I thought, a lot of the time, we don't want to do this because it's the end of the job. That is, like, I was just doing some press on Friday, and I was going, oh well, this is the end of Doctor Who because I'm doing my last sort of interview for it. Yeah. And that's the end of the job. But wouldn't it be more interesting to kind of not talk about that with actors and talk about their life and their struggles and their sort of journey, and give them anything up to, like when I spoke to Lenny James, we did like 3 hours because we just, instead of it being an interview, it's a conversation. So I just thought I need to learn a new skill. So your photography, is my podcast. And that, I just thought, well, I'm not waiting for anybody to send me a script or ring me up. I was like, I can get up and I can speak to Shaun Evans at 11 o'clock on a Monday morning and kickstart the week. And I know it's going to be great and it'll be a great conversation. So, yeah, that's what I do. But, but also,
so important, isn't it, man?
Yeah, but if I'm not doing this, and I've got hours, then I'm in the kitchen. I want to cook.
Yeah.
I want to try and
you
learn.
saying that when I was in Cardiff, you invited me round for dinner because you said you're a bit of a cook.
Well, it's just because I enjoy it, and it's always nice to feed people, and put a smile on the face. I think, or hopefully, and not food poisoning. But Shaun, talking about sort of that we find these creative outlets for us when we're not able to do what we want to do, or it's not the right job and we've said no to something. Another thing that I think is really important that I sort of tell younger students, you don't have to say yes to everything.
Yeah, sometimes saying no is the only agency you have.
Yeah, and what power it is.
Yeah.
And you may be worrying for a few days afterwards because whether you're doing a job for financial reasons or...
Which, by the way, is okay. I mean, we've all got to put bread on the table,
We've all been there, and you have to do it, of course, because you're still searching. And a very good friend of mine, a wise person friend of mine, I remember turning something down once, and she said to me, and I was in my 20s, she went, "Yeah, but Craig, work breeds work." And I do understand that to a point, but you're right about the power of no. It's tremendously important.
But I mean, it's all very interesting, isn't it? Because I think sometimes when I've really had my back against the wall as well in terms of finances or whatever, not that I have a very simple life. It's not extravagant at all by any means, and I've taken jobs that I perhaps wouldn't have had I been a bit more flush. They've always led on to something like incredible. So oftentimes you have to take yourself out of the equation. I mean, the whole point is, I suppose, you never know, right? I mean, you never know what something is going to lead to, and it's such a weird one, isn't it? It's such a mad. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Or who you're going to meet.
Sure.
I've done jobs before. I've gone, I'm not 100% feeling this, but it was like, at the end of it, I've gone, I'm so pleased I've done this because I've met this person, or I've met multiple people who I've learned something off. Because that's a great thing, isn't it? Constantly learning.
For sure.
So when was it, did you have a sort of hunger for this at school, or was life sort of taking you down a different path?
Okay, so when I was growing up, my mum was a barmaid and my dad was a taxi driver. So it was very working class upbringing in Liverpool, and then I had the amazing good fortune of going to I passed the test and went to this private school in Liverpool because I got a scholarship to go, but there was no drama there. There was the occasional school play, but it was very academic, so I was sort of thinking of going to university to do history and politics. At the same time, I'd joined the Everyman Youth Theatre in Liverpool,
right,
which was like a once a week group. And I knew that I was into it, that I felt alive in a way. So it was a creative outlet, but it was also, it's just spoke to me in a way that I thought, this is really special. Though I didn't know anyone who did anything sort of in the creative world. It wasn't, I had no experience of that. And so I suppose I had no expectations of it as well. So then when I was 18, I applied to universities and then I applied to drama schools as well because someone in the school helped me to apply. And then I just thought, it's a foregone conclusion. I'll go to London and try as an actor. And in a way, it was an incredible thing that I knew no one who had, in my immediate circle, who had done that before, because I just went with a completely clean slate. I didn't know what acting was or what the profession was like, or I just thought, I'll just go and do that. It was kind of, it was a decision that I took incredibly lightly, I suppose. Thankfully I didn't agonize over it. I was like, I'll just go and do that.
Because why not? And what a great sense of freedom with no expectations.
Total freedom. Yeah, total freedom. And when I went to drama school, there was a couple of lads in my year whose parents were actors. And so they knew it. And I always thought, God, I feel so pleased that I don't have any expectations or cynicism towards this profession. Not that those lads did, but they'd had an experience of it. But for me, it was completely fresh and incredibly exciting. And each day was new. And I felt, surrounded by like-minded people and moving to London. The whole experience was just awesome. It really was.
I mean, it is kind of terrifying when you're young and you meet those people who, not to say that they had sort of cynicism passed on to from their parents because they were actors, but they had knowledge. So they know
how difficult it is. They know that there's no rhyme or reason to it, and that there will be periods of unemployment, and that can bring its own baggage. Do you know what I mean? So whereas to come in completely as a clean slate and be devoid of that was a real blessing, and to just see the work as the work.
Were you ever taught at drama school how to navigate the darker days or the times when you're not?
I mean, you're not really. You're not. That's why I thought it was important to say that to this youngster when I was mentoring him, because there will be that, and also how to do your tax. Do you know what I mean? How to do to live.
Yeah.
I know it sounds wild, but I had to learn the hard way, and filling in VAT and all that nonsense. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Which is incredibly important. And budgeting, all these things that I knew nothing of. But then I suppose, what that being said, your 20s are supposed to be about being hedonistic and being wild and making all those mistakes, Andy. So I'm quite glad that was the case, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. But it's times like that, and I think now moving forward, places of study, certainly for the arts, should focus on dealing with darker times, considering the darkness that everybody's been through over the past sort of couple of years, and how to deal with any sort of mental health struggles, and the fact that people should be able to talk about it, especially with these certain, not being patronising, but certain sort of young minds who are being moulded, and they're thrown all this knowledge that they're trying to put in their metaphorical backpack to pull out at certain times over the years. And maybe they will.
It's very difficult, isn't it? Because I feel like there's been a shift since in the 20 years that I've been working, because I feel like back then it was way more, there wasn't a conversation about mental health, and it's terrific that there is now. Whereas I feel like 20 years ago, it just demanded tenacity, and I don't know, I can't, I don't know, I haven't fully thought about this.
No, I think you're right. You know
what I mean?
Well, I do, because, years and years ago, we're always told to, dig deep, soldier on. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not being lazy, but it's just a bit of a struggle, and I'm a bit lost and I don't know what to do. Well,
yeah, exactly. And I haven't got a job in any bloody move. Yeah, difficult to soldier on.
Fucking keep your head down and carry on. And be certainly, being from the north.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I wondered if that's a northern thing as well. But listen, tell me about your experience. Like, what took you into being an actor? What was your upbringing like? Is it similar to mine, or?
Well, I love the deflection back to me, Shaun. And usually I say, no, that's not about me. But and I've said this before. Well, I started at school. Really, I was very lucky. My deputy headmaster, who was a not so secret theatre lover, wrote a play, and he said, right, okay, if you start to knuckle down a bit more in class, then I want you to come and do this play and come and do the lead in this play. It was a very funny, historic, time-travelling play, way ahead of its time, Shaun. It was very fun. And obviously, you start getting laughs at school from your peers, and it's addictive, and you want to ride it and you want to learn. So I just wanted to learn more, I suppose, and not be suppressed by the school system, even though I had an outlet of drama. And it was just sort of a conveyor belt there. I started to work out, well, who did I look up to? Well, John Sim was always on my telly, and I knew that he was from Lancashire. And David Thewlis had been working with Mike Lee, and he was from Lancashire. And they all went to this amazing place that's sadly no longer at the campus that it was, called Blackburn File College. So you go there after school, and then that's your sort of a bit of a foundation course before you go, if you go, which you did at that time. You wanted to go straight to London Drama School. So that was kind of my route. And nowadays, obviously, with street casting, it's all, I didn't even know what street casting was, 20 years ago. Yeah. It was like now they're plucking incredible talent like, Thomas Turgoose and a lot of that Nottingham scene. Many didn't go to drama school because they've got great foundations in the East Mids. And I always say, drama school isn't the only route, especially now because there's so much competition, and also financially, sometimes incredible talent can be found round the corner.
For sure. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not, and also, by the way, it's no guarantee. Do you know what I mean? Just because you go to drama school doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to work and have a career. You know what I mean? And as you say, the price thing, I mean, it means it limits the people, the people who are joining the workforce. Do you know what I mean? If they can't afford to go, then they're not. It's not right to say they don't have a place in this.
No, I mean everybody should have the right to train in the chosen field. But
for sure.
Sometimes, and there's been questions and essays written and articles and interviews about this over certainly the last 5 years. I remember reading one at 2:00 in the morning, like before I started this podcast, and it was all about is it only going to be the elite and a certain member of class that are allowed to train at drama school? So they're the ones that can afford it. So therefore, is it coming out the other end just the same mould off a conveyor belt of the higher class of people? And I don't think so, but as you say, as we both agreed, drama school isn't the only way. And as we've touched on, Jesus, there's no guarantee. So was it drummed into you at drama school that there was no guarantee? Or were you told? I remember being told on graduation, a few days before graduation, they took me into an office and gave me a sort of 30-minute rundown of my 3 years. And they said, the thing about you, Craig, is your character, your tall character. You probably won't work until your 40s. So just bear that in mind. And I went, oh, right, okay, thanks very much.
No, mine wasn't like that. I mean, I suppose to be honest, I was 18 when I went down, and which was the perfect age really, because I think I was open enough to take in the things that I thought were useful, but I had enough vim to park anything that I didn't think was useful. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I think some folk can lose themselves, can't they, at drama school and that process. But I was like open enough to take things that were useful, and I had enough sense of myself to park the stuff that I didn't find to be useful.
That sounds quite mature for an 18-year-old. So I think
it's full of myself. I was probably just full of myself and pretending to know. Is exactly what it was.
Right. Jesus, confidence goes a long way, Shaun. And how was it for you leaving the safety of drama school? Because it is a safe place. It's a place where we are encouraged to fail.
I was very lucky, to be honest with you, mate. I was really lucky. I got a job and left early. I had the good fortune of getting an agent, and I got offered 2 jobs within the space of a week or so. And so I left and started working on a TV show which never came out, I think. So within that 4 months or 5 months, I learned all of the stuff that I hadn't been taught at drama school about, hitting your mark, working with the camera, because of course it's like a classical training, isn't it, at drama school?
Exactly.
And it's different now. It's different now. But back then there was very little like TV or camera stuff, which seems so silly, but they've remedied that now. So then I was lucky, really. I did that job, and then that finished, and then I got offered something else right afterwards. So for the first year, I was busy right for the whole year, which was incredible, really, and very, very fortunate.
And rare. That is rare, isn't it, to walk out.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I felt really lucky about that, But to be honest, at the same time, I was ready for it too. I didn't. My feeling was, yeah, you're right. You are encouraged to fail, but I found it very difficult to see it in that way. I think because I was hungry. I was just incredibly hungry to get out and start working and to meet new people and to try and find and build my place in it. You know what I mean? I was young and I'm ambitious and
also it's terrifying. Doesn't matter if it's drummed into you that this is the place. It's like in a rehearsal room. You always tell, look, this is great. Let's fail now before we're in front of an audience. This is the place. But it's like no one wants to fall flat on the face in front of their peers at drama school. It's so much easier said than done.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, isn't it? But then I think the more you do, the more I think it's so interesting, isn't it? That the idea of failing and whatnot, and success and what
Yeah, I don't even know what success.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I was like, the work itself is its own reward, right? I mean, and I know that's kind of again like quite a trite thing to say, but it's the absolute truth. It's funny because you're doing your work for someone else, obviously for the audience and whatnot, but ultimately you have to be pleased with the work that you're doing and be grateful for the work, I don't know, I'm just trying to get my head around it now. The more I think, the more I do and the more I think about it, the work itself does have to be its own reward, I think.
I think so.
Financially enumerated, and sometimes you get praise and sometimes you don't. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes work leads on to something else. But ultimately, you have to put your head on the pillow of a night and be, today I did a good job. Today I did my work to the best of my ability. Whether it's acting or directing or photography, writing, whatever, today I contributed, And I think the more that I can spend days doing that, then the better, more fulfilled my life is,
Are you ever, talking of resting your head on the pillow at night, and after you've been filming as an actor or a director, are you one of those that you can switch your head off, or are you constantly going, right, well, are you replaying, going, we could have done that a bit better, I think I could have shifted that, or?
I'm not really, to be honest, mate. I kind of think I'm not really. I mean, for me personally, I try and prepare as much as absolute possible for the acting work, and likewise for directing, to have as many things prepared as possible, and then I just try and go and clear my mind and be in the moment and allow your instinct and things to take over, come what may, right? And I think if I've done that, then it is what it is. Then I can't do any more.
It's in somebody else's
hands. Yeah, it's in someone else's hands, and then I can sleep. Whereas if I've come in and I've tried to desperately fucking control everything, then when things haven't gone the way that you intend for them to go, then that's when I'm like losing sleep. But like, who's to say that my intention of the way things going is the way things should go anyway, right? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think I'll do my work as much as I can and then just give it to something else. I don't know what the thing is that you're giving it to the moment, to the team, to the people, to the story itself, I guess, right? You're allowing that to take over, and surely that is the whole point. You don't want to get in front of an audience or get on set and deliver the performance that you've laboriously prepared. You want to prepare the ground so that you can get on and do your work, and then allow the work, to do it itself. I'm sorry, that sounds really esoteric, and I don't mean it to.
No, you know what I mean? No, it doesn't, because by saying that you prepare, so you've got the foundations to be free, and to play about, and ultimately to listen.
And to be open and to listen, yeah, exactly. And then to give what everyone else has given you and what the environment has given you as well. And even, perhaps what the audience are giving you too, the story, how they want the story to be told tonight if you're on stage, for example, So all of these things, that's what makes it such a rich and worthwhile and extraordinarily exciting life. The enormous variety of it is, I find, so fucking thrilling. Do you know what I mean? I find it properly thrilling. And then the job will be done in 3 months, and then you'll go on and do something else with a completely different group of people, a different type of story, and you'll have to use different tools within yourself in order to tell that story. So, I mean, I'm like a very happy customer. I feel very lucky, long may it continue.
Shaun, you've said that you're good at switching off at the end of the day or at the end of the job and leaving it to the next group of people who it's the editor's job to cut that thing together and the director's job to choose that cut and that take and that size. How are you with auditions? Are you good at leaving an audition and...
I am actually honest. I think, I mean, again, everything's a lesson, right? When I was in my early 20s, there was a job that I really, really wanted. And this happens to everyone, right? You get down to the last two and then it doesn't go your way.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm really honest about it, I suppose I was just breaking up with a girl at the time. So I suppose I was putting too much upon trying to get this job, right? It didn't go my way and I was devastated. I mean, not devastated. I was just gutted that I didn't get the job.
Yeah.
And so then I began to think about that. And it was based on someone's life. And so I began to research into this person's life and began to try and think why I really wanted that quite so much. What about that story I found so appealing? And why, in a way, I had allowed myself to have so much desire and want for that, and to be so gutted when it doesn't go your way. When actually, now that I have been as a director part of the casting process, there are so many things which aren't. It's very rarely is to do with how brilliant or not brilliant you are, how right you are for the part. There's so many things surrounding that. However, I didn't know that then. But what I did think was, my takeaway from it was, okay, from here on in, when I go for an audition for something, I'm going to have prepared myself so much in the days and weeks leading up to it that I've already played the part in my head. So I've already got everything I need out of this from a creative point of view. I hope that when I go in for the audition or for the meeting, that the rest of the team will want us to continue this work, and I'd love to work with them. But if it doesn't go my way, I've already played the part in my mind. I can come in, do the audition, spend that 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever, chatting about it and playing a few scenes. And then, okay, my work is done now. I can go home. And if it continues, then brilliant. And if not, sounds, there'll be something else next week. So I can't bear the idea of giving someone your power. Do you know what I mean? And needing permission from someone to do your work. So I just always try and wrestle it back. And to be honest, then in terms of directing and whatnot too, I often think, frequently think, it's about empowering the actor to take their space, to do their work, and not be boxing people in. So that's always my feeling with all of those things, because I know very rarely is it to do with you getting a job and not getting a job. Very rarely is it to do with, as we said, it's to do with so many things that are beyond your control. And I just think it's you're on the way for a high, and I think if you live in that way, living in a way where there's no sense or rhyme or reason. You have to make your own sense within this chaotic, bonkers little world. That's for me.
I know. But I think it's a very, very healthy approach to think like that, to go, I've started this. If we want to continue this journey together, I'd love it. If we don't, well, I've kind of done it, and I'll be a bit sad. I think for me, as with many things have improved over time and age, and experience. And now I'm quite good at not necessarily throwing it away, because that sounds dismissive, but just putting it to one side and letting it blow away of its own accord. And if, like you, if there's something that I want to, and I'm taking your turn of phrase, to continue, I might be a bit sad and a bit cranky for 24, 48 hours.
Yeah.
But then, I blow it away and let it go. And,
yeah,
I'm still in my gym clothes now. Go to the gym and just sort of do something and take my mind completely off it.
Yeah, it's important, isn't it, mate? It's important. Because, I mean, they're coming all the time, aren't they? Meetings for stuff and jobs that you never... The amount of jobs that you get versus the amount that you go for is like... You know what I mean?
It's ridiculous and sometimes overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
But, Shaun, when did you have the thought of directing? Because many actors sort of, tinker with writing, and very few are able to step up and do both. But that's something that you've been able to do over the past few years. So how did it first come back? Because I know you started with Casualty, didn't you?
Yeah, so I was very lucky, really, mate. Very lucky. Well, I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I was one of these kids running around with a Super 8 camera. That just wasn't me, But I was always interested in having an overview, attempting at least to have an overview, and not getting lost in my own small world of what my character would do or not do, And I think it's themes within stories which are interesting to me. The ideas that you're trying to get across, why stories are important, why we need them, and why we keep telling them. These things I've always, to be honest, been interested in that. And like I say, I was interested in photography and making a visual story before I was acting as well. So I suppose it's always been there.
Yeah.
Then when I had the good fortune of Endeavour coming my way, I thought, well, even though I only thought it was, initially I thought it was just going to be a one-off. And then when they came back to do the first series, I thought, okay, well, I'll try and learn as much as I humanly can from this, and grow and use it as a school, and so I thought it was such a rare opportunity to be in most scenes, to shoot 3 or 4 90-minute films, essentially films for TV, back to back, and to be on hand with really great directors all day. I would be a mug not to make the most of this. So I had my little notebook with me at all times, and at each point I would sidle up to the director and be like, well, this is interesting, why are you doing that? Or, well, I'd watch them, I suppose, watch how they related to the crew and how they related to the cast and how they told the story. And then the differences that they all had, I would be curious about why he's doing it, how he's telling it in this way, or how she is telling it in that way. So I was always taking notes and observing. So I did want to direct then. And then I began to be a producer on the show as well. And I wanted to direct, but I didn't want to. I wanted to learn my trade, to be honest. I didn't want to be like, I didn't want to get the opportunity and not know what I was doing, and then therefore balls it up. Mm. And also I wanted it as a separate avenue for my life as well, you know what I mean? So that I could continue my work and continue to tell stories that don't depend upon this white male being in them. Do you know what I mean? That I could actually tell stories that are beyond my experience and what I could tell, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So basically, I got in touch with actually, funny enough, I got in touch with Like TV, but they weren't really interested in helping me at the beginning. So I got in touch with someone at the BBC, and I just hustled, and spoke to a series producer called Erica, who was producing Casualty. They had a mentoring scheme. Sorry, this is probably very tedious, but I'll just keep it short.
No, it's brilliant.
They had a mentoring scheme, which means that you shadow one of the directors. I only had a small amount of time. So I said, look, if you give me an opportunity, I'll do what I can to nail it. She did a bit of due diligence. They had one episode of Casualty, which they didn't have a director for, which fitted into the time I had off. So I said, if you give me the opportunity, I'll try my best to nail it. And she did a bit of due diligence, called around, heard that my heart was in the right place and that I work hard, gave me the chance. So I went to Cardiff and directed an episode, read all of the books that I could, referred back to all of my little notebooks, and went, and I so enjoyed it. I so enjoyed it in a very different way from acting. It's equally sort of thrilling, but in a very different way. You use a very different part of yourself, which I found just so appealing, you know. And then I went back and did an acting job. Then guys from Casualty asked me to come back and do twice as much this time, so I went and did that. And then the next year I started to direct Endeavour. Then, and that in itself was a huge challenge, because it just demands that you need to know exactly what you want before you go into it, because time is short, obviously, because I'm in the scenes as well, you know. So you have to have a good sense of what I want in the frame and how things are going to be shot, and dependent entirely upon the team as well. So in a way, it has become an incredible school, you know, how you can be as efficient as possible, and interesting as an actor, but likewise as a director as well, you know, to like not be fannying around, but to have made decisions and prepared the ground before you start, you know. So it's been amazing, and it's something that I mean, they're both things that I really want to continue, because they are the side of the same coin. Do you know what I mean?
Again, it's another creative outlet for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, you know, and it's one thing going into direct episodes of something that, as an actor, you have distance from. Yeah. But to go and direct something that you yourself are the lead in the show, I mean, how are you switching your head off from getting into character to getting behind the camera? Or
do you know what, mate? It was incredible, to be honest with you, in terms of what it taught me about storytelling, for camera at least, and the economy of a gesture. You know, the economy of a gesture and a shot. What the shot is about. What is actually required in order to tell the story, both from being within the scene, but also externally from outside the scene as well. And how much energy and time can be wasted worrying about the wrong things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was incredibly illuminating in that regard.
And is it driving the story forward? I'm always...
And is it driving the story forward? Yeah, or are we just fanning around? Do you know what I mean? Or am I decorating? And ultimately, is this going to go when I get to the edit anyway? Do you know? Like, what do we need to tell this story? And I think it's efficiency and cutting away, and not cutting away, but really drilling down into what a scene is about and how to tell it in the most interesting and yet economical way. But back to what you actually asked me, I think what I've realised is that I am quite just kamikaze about things, that I don't really... I mean, I suppose I do have a process, but if there's a challenge, then I just fucking hail myself at it bodily. Yeah.
Sean, we've talked a lot about television, screen and training and control, and the fact that you're very good at going, well, I've done my job. passing it on to somebody else now, certainly with television and film. But with theatre,
Yeah.
you get a chance every night. You've done your 4 or 5, however weeks in the rehearsal room,
Yep.
and we've all fallen on our asses, and now it's time when the audience are here. But if it doesn't go well on a Monday for any reason, that's all right, because I've got another chance to try something new.
But what does it mean it doesn't go well? I mean, I'm thinking about this a lot lately, because I think this is really interesting. I've not directed theatre.
No.
I've only acted in it, and so it's a completely different beast. But my feeling is now that process, the acting process and the performance has to take center stage. Do you know what I mean? That has to be again preparing the ground for things. You have to prepare the ground for that from the get-go. And my attitude towards that is like, you know, the work begins on the first day of rehearsal and it will end on the final performance. And then within those 3 months or however long, it will evolve. Some things will be better than others.
Yeah.
But you have to find a way to be as inspired from the first day of rehearsal right through to the final performance. That's alongside your actors and alongside what the director is giving you and alongside both the pros and the shortcomings of the play and the audience that night. It's such a moving, there's so many moving parts. It's such an incredible thing, but you have to be prepared to do your work and have a take on this from the get-go, which will sustain you to the end. That's why when people talk about like press nights and opening nights, I'm like, Jesus, every night's first night, isn't it, for the audience down there that night?
Exactly.
And also, you know, you're working with your peers, people who you've probably not even met before on the first day of rehearsal, and you want to make sure that you're bringing something to the table then and doing what you can to like inspire and astonish and dazzle and make something interesting happen within the space. Do you know what I mean? So it's incredibly rich. It just feels rich in a very different way from camera stuff is, because it's a bit more spit and sawdust, and it's time constraints are no longer there in the same way that they are as you're doing camera stuff, and you're trying to, I suppose, disturb the air on a daily basis. And what does that mean? Do you know what I'm saying? What does that like? How do you do that?
I don't know. I don't know, because you're tapping into something different. There's stamina that's needed, that muscular. You're not using that muscle when you have an intense 3-page scene. You've got this long drawn out thing, and it's not like you're switching it off. And I remember people going, "No, but you're only working for 2 hours a night." No, but the build up is intense because you're constantly thinking about it. And with regards to what you said about, you know, things not being right, or I forget what I actually said, because I've obviously talked too much on. But sometimes I remember, and the very little stage work I've done over the years, some nights I've gone, no, I'm not here. I'm not present, and I'm constantly trying to get there throughout it. So therefore, that was my Monday. So I have to put that to bed now, and I've got to learn from why I feel personally things didn't go well that night to change. But it's like you said, from the first preview, or even, you know, in front of an audience, or even in the rehearsal room to the end, it's a constant journey, and there's ups and downs, and you're building. So it doesn't really end. Yeah.
I also think, I mean, it doesn't. And I think, I mean, look, I don't know. I'm still learning all this, do you know what I mean? But this is my understanding of it right now. It's wild, isn't it? I mean, I do actually think it's wild, because sometimes I think I know a lot, and then sometimes I think I know nothing.
Constantly.
And in a way, that's good. I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? I'm cool with that. But I think, what I do. Well, okay, here's what I actually think. You know, there's something. How are you opening yourself up to the work, and how are you opening yourself up to the audience, and not trying to control and allowing? I mean, what is theatre? Like, it's like it's the seeing place, right? You know, and if the sort of ancient religiosity of the Greeks and why people went to the theatre and the ritual and there's a sort of, I don't want to say spiritual element because that's not right, but there's something otherworldly about it, I think. And I try to encourage myself to open myself to that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not being really fucking suburban and boring, but actually opening yourself to a long tradition of theatre. Am I just talking shit now? Do you know what I mean?
No, you're not talking shit. It's really, really
but
interesting.
I do kind of think like there has to be something epic about it. You know what I mean? No one wants to come and see something tedious, do they? It's got to be epic and huge. Otherwise, what's the point? And how do you access that? The things that are beyond my tiny little self, my tiny little Shaun born, blah, 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 to be more, be bigger, something that's beyond you. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. Shaun Evans, you're anything but suburban and boring. This has been a beautiful conversation, and thank you so much for giving your Monday morning, my friend.
Delighted we finally managed to sort it out.
Thank you so much for coming on. You're an absolute treat.
Cheers, buddy.